it's that time of the year again. The Mobile World Congress 2018 is taking place in Barcelona as we speak. Now, this is the largest such gathering for mobile manufacturers anywhere in the world. Now, was this one special or was it a mixed bag? Well, we've seen all sorts of, comebacks and resurrections and launches, and of course, some bizarre launches as well. Now, we couldn't be there in snowy Barcelona, but we know someone who is at the Mobile World Congress. Amit, Bhawani, editor and founder at Phone Radar, and a well-known blogger, joins us on the show from the airport. Amit, thanks so much for speaking to us on Bloomberg Quint. Now, you've been attending the Mobile World Congress event for the last few years. How's this one like? What's the mood like this time around? I know there have been some interesting launches by Samsung, of course, with their flagships, and Nokia as well. But what's the mood like this time around?
I mean, most of the products were already leaked, so nothing was a surprise. We thought like we might be shocked or would be surprised with something innovative, something new, something never seen before, but everything was already known. It was like an obligatory trip to all the way to Barcelona just to see the products in real. I mean, we have already seen the Samsung Galaxy S9, S9 Plus, or the other smartphones which came up from Nokia or a few other smartphone vendors. But frankly speaking, I'm a little bit disappointed this year.
But tell me something, Amit, so when you talk about that, and I want to get to the launches that sort of caught your eye as well, and I'm going to bring some up in a bit. But since you're mentioning that it was like an obligatory trip or just out of tradition, it's interesting that you say that because, it seems like it was the same mood at CES in Las Vegas this year. It seems like Mobile World Congress turned out to be a little bit of a bummer. I was at IMC as well, and it wasn't as, glitzy and glamorous as I'd imagined. Does it mean that these manufacturers now are looking at their own individual, independent flagship events, be it OnePlus, be it Apple, of course, be it Google, and even Samsung to a great extent, either when they're launching their flagships or even iterations of their flagships? Are we seeing all the headlines and all the attention moving to those individual events now?
Yes, that's quite possible. You could see Samsung looking at the launches of the Galaxy Note series at Berlin, Apple at WWDC, Google having their own event. Most of these OEMs are moving out to their own dedicated events. But again, apart from that, if you look at the smartphone industry, I think it has hit a top benchmark. I mean, there's not much of innovation happening there. We can just see a little bit of upgrades happening to the current smartphones which are available in the market. So not much of stuff happening unless and until we look forward to the new concept of foldable smartphones or smartphone which you can just stick it onto your hand or your body and just move on. So that's something we look forward to the next level. Right now, we have already hit the top momentum. That's what I feel so.
Interesting, Amit, that you said, because a lot of bloggers, a lot of tech geeks around the world feel like perhaps the smartphone has reached saturation point. Now, perhaps we've not seen, everything is incremental when it comes to innovations. Even when it comes to the iPhone 10, we see that vertical, the notch on top out there as well. And now when someone's going completely bezel-less, it seems like everyone is moving bezel-less, right? And I think that was, not the official theme, but the sort of unofficial theme, because a lot of Chinese manufacturers and even other manufacturers are moving to this iPhone 10-like display. They existed before the iPhone 10, I must remind everyone, but now it seems to be almost compulsory on a budget smartphone, on a top-end smartphone. Was that the theme this time around at MWC?
Yes, that was also a theme. Like we could see a few Chinese smartphones specifically adding a notch so that they could have an iPhone 10 clone, and then few of them actually went ahead and offered a surprise innovation like Vivo, which came out with a smartphone concept, not an actual product right now, where you get 98% bodies to screen display, which is something one of the first in the industry. So that's something which I guess Apple should be following, or even others should be following.
Right, I mean, just to understand, let's dissect at least 2 or 3 launches, because I know most of the substantial, launches and the bigger ones took place on the first 2 days, and especially when it comes to Samsung. Now, that was obviously an interesting event, but there's been a lot of criticism about pricing per se. Did you get any details on pricing for the S9 and the S9 Plus? Because they're saying when it comes in, we had, the 2 show specs on our show as well over here, and it seems like, it is an iPhone 10 a competitor, so to speak, but it is almost as expensive. So are they perhaps losing the plot when it comes to pricing?
I don't know. So maybe like Samsung is looking forward to a premium flagship segment itself, and this year there are speculations it would be starting at 65,000 price range. Here and there, 5-10%. Another one would be like 72,000 rupees. But then definitely the product is inspired with the iPhone 10. If you look at the specs, Samsung is going to offer the same specs which Apple is offering, like 64 GB of internal storage, and then the next no 128 GB storage, and directly jumping to the 256 GB storage option. So it does look like an iPhone 10 contender, but still a better price comparatively, because the iPhone 10 now starts at 95,000 rupees, while this is at 65. So we still have a huge price gap.
Absolutely, Amit. So obviously that is Samsung, maybe or maybe not with an iPhone 10 killer, and let's see what Apple announces as well in the coming months. But what becomes more interesting is Nokia, and these are people who've been looking. HMD Global, so to speak, the Finnish startup that's now with the Nokia brand, has been looking at India very seriously. They made a lot of trips down here. We've met their management, we've met their product officer, and it's been very interesting considering last year it was all about the Nokia 3310 being brought back, and it's a marketing gimmick. This year we saw the Matrix phone, the 8110 back. Call it the banana phone, the Matrix phone, whatever you want to call it, and it packs some interesting features, and of course it's a slider functionality that we all seem to have forgotten about. What was the buzz around the HMD Nokia stall like?
I mean, there was a tremendous response, frankly speaking. There were long queues for the 8810 at the booth, but I personally feel that Nokia is doing some things wrong. Like the last year, as you just mentioned, 3310, it was more like a PR gimmick, which has actually, which was completely highlighted the whole year, while the better products like the Nokia 6, Nokia 8 were not talked about. The same thing is happening this year. They came out with some interesting smartphones like the Nokia 6 2018, or the new Nokia 7 Plus, or the new Nokia 8 SIROCCO edition. No one is going to talk about that. They're just going to talk about the banana phone, which practically no one is actually going to buy. It's just a gimmick. We just talk about it and then forget it after a week or so. I wonder that's Nokia's strategy to just get some eyeballs, get some attention, but that's not going to give them a market share, right?
Yeah, Amit, but what are your thoughts on the Nokia 8 SIROCCO as well? I mean, considering that will be perhaps priced very competitively, somewhere in the OnePlus flagship range, and similar to what they did with the previous Nokia flagship. Do you think that there's a market for that as well, considering they go on talking about design being very subjective, but the fact of the matter being that they do offer a very interesting sound experience, a good display, and of course interesting functionalities with their Snapdragon processor when it comes to both these and stuff like that?
Right. I mean, definitely Nokia has been offering great products from the last 1 year. Only thing which I feel is that they shouldn't be dropping their prices. Like the Nokia 8, definitely a good product, has got a huge price drop within a few months itself. So if they are confident enough, they should be launching it at a better price. So we are not sure what would be the price of the SIROCCO edition. Let's look forward to something which is very competitive to the OnePlus smartphone series.
Very interesting, Amit. Just a last question. Was there anything in particular apart from these that stood out? I know there were bezel-less laptops. I know there was a Chinese manufacturer which had an iPhone 10 and a Samsung clone for around $150 Lego or something like that, which was quite an audacious move to actually announce at the Mobile World Congress. Anything that stood out for you?
They have been doing that. Those brands like Doji or Lego have been announcing these kind of smartphones. In fact, the S9 or S9 Pro from these brands actually came out a month before the Samsung's official launch, with the exact design and everything, at just $150 to $200. But what I actually was liked was the Huawei's MateBook X Pro, which was an interesting laptop, which was more like one of the world's first bezel-less laptop. I wouldn't say one of the world's first, but it has a higher body to screen ratio, so that's something definitely better. And the interesting part was the pop-up camera. You just pop up and the camera comes out, so that's something which is good for privacy. No one can peep into your camera all the time, so that's something which is better.
Interesting, Amit. Really nice chatting with you after so long, and we really appreciate that you could join us from the airport. Have a safe flight, and see you when you're back in India.
Thank you.
And for all of you watching, well, those were the top trends and the highlights of the Mobile World Congress 2018. Like I said, a mixed bag, but we wanted to get you, well, what the whole lineup was all about. Thanks so much for watching and stay tuned to Bloomberg.